Mark Zuckerberg posted this image to show off the scale of Meta's newest AI data center, Hyperion. It shows the project's footprint that's laid over Manhattan, covering about 1,000 blocks of the city. That's where 250,000 people live and work. While the physical scale of it is impressive, what's not shown here is the time scale, which is what I'm interested in. Meta's financial statements say that their servers for the project are useful for about 5 years. Meanwhile, Meta's minimum lease commitment on the facility is reportedly about 4 years. And that begins once construction is complete, projected for 2030 after beginning in 2025. Let's just look at this ladder for a second. The building takes longer to finish than the technology inside of it will last. By opening day, the hardware assumptions that made this thing cutting edge will be generations old. Some of those facilities will need renovation before construction is even complete. We're spending tens of billions of dollars, and this is plausibly the most expensive building boom in modern history on buildings that are obsolete before they're ever finished. So the question that I can't stop asking is, why are we building permanent structures for a temporary machine? And what happens to this machine when it just moves on?
And this is why I think that question matters more than it might seem. Some of my favorite buildings here in Chicago were the AI data centers of their day. Not literally, but they were the biggest, most expensive, and most technically demanding buildings of their moment. They were built quickly, too, and they were built for machines that made things and for the storage of stuff, rather than being conceived around people. We're talking about factories, warehouses, or cold storage. Now, a century later, they're apartments, or they're offices, galleries, or grocery stores, entire neighborhoods where people live and they work. These were made during the Industrial Revolution,
which was also a building boom for a new way of producing things. But check this out, Facebook's own New York offices are inside a building that was constructed over 100 years ago as a post office.
Facebook again expanded its footprint in the city, adding an additional 730,000 square feet of space in the former Farley Post Office building.
A building made for sorting mail became the office for a $1 trillion tech company.
So if a 1912 mail building can become a tech office, why couldn't a 2026 tech building become anything else at all? I think that is the puzzle. Because the buildings of this boom, the Hyperions that are out there, have, as far as anyone can tell, zero chance of a second life.
They're not designed as platforms for something else to land on later on. They're designed as appliances. When the machine inside goes obsolete, the whole thing is presumed just garbage. Is that inevitable? Is there something about a data center that makes a second life just impossible? Or are we just not trying? Let's figure it out. A data center has 4 main parts: the computing racks, the electrical infrastructure, the cooling system, and the building. The basic module is the GPU, which is about 1 foot long and 4 inches tall. Bundle 8 of those together with networking and power into a rack, roughly 30 inches wide and 8 feet tall, and a single fully loaded rack can weigh around 3,500 pounds. Rows of racks back to back with access aisles. That's the heart of it. Because of the weight, racks usually sit on the concrete slab directly. Power, data, and cooling then run overhead. These need more vertical space than the racks themselves. Liquid cooling means that there's chilled water supply and return lines up there, and air cooling means ducts and a plenum above the drop ceiling. The cooling plant for all this is enormous, but it's not particularly exotic. It's not that different from the district cooling plants that serve buildings downtown. Heck, we have these all over Chicago. And there's power. At this scale, you can't just plug into the local grid without breaking it. So the biggest campuses bring their own generation or supplement nearby systems, which is why these sites sprawl with substations, generators, and switchyards. Hyperion's roughly 5 gigawatts is about what it takes to power New York City. And the building to house all this, well, they literally call it the shell. Its job is to keep the weather out, keep unauthorized people out, and hold up that heavy floor. That's it. Keeping everything to just one single story avoids the cost of reinforcing any upper floors, and the walls are pre-engineered steel bays that are wrapped in a metal deck. The building's almost shockingly dumb. The most advanced computing facility on Earth, and the building's job is simply to provide a roof, a fence, and a slab. Meta has literally run servers in tents while waiting for buildings to finish. So everything that you've heard is true. It is a highly specialized facility. But it's not specialized in any way that you might think. It's in the racks, and the quantity and the scale of things like the electrical gear and the cooling. The building and the pieces, the parts that last 25 or 30 years, barely participate in it at all. So let's compare that with the buildings that I endorsed before. Why a warehouse built 120 years ago was able to become apartments. It has a simple, repetitive structure, clear spans on a rational grid. It has high ceilings with stronger floors than it probably needed originally, certainly stronger than an apartment needs. And it has durable, fire-resistant envelope. These buildings were flexible because they were generic in the right ways. The owner knew that the tenants would change, that the equipment would change, and the whole industry might change. And the building, it could take it. Now let's make that same list for an AI data center. Repetitive structure, check. The most repetitive building on Earth. Modular kits, identical bays assembled in weeks. Overbuilt floors. They need to hold around 400 pounds per square foot. That's a library archive territory. That's a lot, but plenty of multi-story buildings can carry loads like that. You have high ceilings, they're enormous for all that overhead distribution. Durable envelope, well, it's built to protect billions of dollars of equipment. Look at this. These are almost the same lists. The data center isn't too specialized to become something else. By the logic of every loft conversion in America, it's a perfect candidate. The repetition of the data center, that seems inhuman, is exact quality that makes the warehouse adaptable. The bays stay put, while the life inside rearranges. Meta's accounting depreciates the servers over about 5 years, the buildings 25 to 30. But functionally, the whole campus is being treated on the server's schedule. Meta doesn't even own Hyperion. They lease it. And that 4-year initial commitment, the financing, the tax incentives, and the tenure, every instrument around the building treats it as equipment. The loft, it's not equipment. It's a platform or a piece of infrastructure. It's a sturdy, indifferent surface for almost anything to take place.
The old warehouse didn't survive just because it was a platform, though. It survived largely because it was in a city. Soho Lofts got saved by Manhattan, and Chicago's West Loop, where we are right now, was at one point so undesirable that the mayor tried to sever it from downtown with a highway, but the city swallowed it anyway. City life caught up to these buildings.
But nothing is catching up to 3,600 acres of former soybean fields in rural Louisiana. The location, it's just a design decision. The only things that are pushing these campuses to the middle of nowhere are cheap land, easy permitting, scalable power, and tax breaks.
Right here is where that comes full circle. This was a steel mill built in the same boom by the same economy as those lofts that are downtown. But it never became a place for people to live. The mill was never a platform. The building instead was shaped around its machine. Blast furnaces, rolling cranes, and lines. The way a data center shell is shaped around its racks. Single purpose, single tenant, and a single story sprawl, fenced off from the rest of the street grid. The Industrial Revolution built appliances too, and you're looking at what happens to them.
The mill shut down over 30 years ago, and the milling left the soil so contaminated that nothing could be built here without a cleanup that nobody wanted to pay for. So it sat for 3 decades. And what's finally absorbing it? A new AI and quantum computing campus. At 350 megawatts, it'll draw enough electricity to have powered a whole quarter of the city.
And this is the cycle. Heavy industry that's built for one purpose, abandoned its sites without any thought for an afterlife, and the city pays for it for a generation.
That's exactly what the Rust Belt is. The bill for extraction-minded buildings designed without regard for any afterlife. Now multiply that by hundreds of campuses planned across the country, each one a huge building with a huge grid demand and a tiny human footprint. A typical 250,000 square foot data center runs on about 50 full-time workers. Construction workers camp nearby because there's no housing around here. Then they leave, and then what remains is fences, generators, and a 4-year lease.
Some companies are responding with greener materials. Meta has tested some mass timber framing solutions. And look, I'll take it. But using less concrete to build the same disposable object in the same disposable place isn't a real fix here. The extraction mentality just hasn't changed since the steel mills. So no, I don't think that the question is whether or not we should be building data centers. I mean, we are, and they're going to be here. The question is what kind of bet that each building makes about the future.
The old warehouses made a bet. I don't know what's coming, so we'll make it strong, we'll make it simple, and in a way that can be reclaimed by other things. It was wrong a lot too. Wrong about what the city would need. It was wrong about who could occupy it. Wrong about which industry would matter next. And being built to survive being wrong so often is exactly why it's still here. The AI data center makes the opposite bet. The exact machine, this exact moment, will justify everything in the end. It arrives as a pre-made conclusion.
And the owners, they already know it's a bad bet. It's right there in the depreciation schedule. They're just confident that the building won't be their problem by then. But maybe it'll be yours though, because somebody's town holds every single one of these, and likely barely paying any taxes at all. Maybe the smartest buildings that we've ever made shouldn't be worse at surviving than a brick box that was built for crates. We know how to build platforms and infrastructures. We've just stopped doing it, right when we're building bigger than ever.
And that comes at the expense of building more housing in our cities, because even these enormous buildings can provide the infrastructure that we need to adapt. A subject that I explore in my next video, where we deep dive into the color of our housing and how it's determined. It's crazy how much this adaptation is controlled and regulated. You can watch this right now exclusively on Nebula. Nebula is a streaming platform built and owned by us creators. Over 200 of us, like Legal Eagle or Real Engineering, we pool our resources and we try to build the ideal viewing experience for you, our viewers and our supporters. This all means access to the best, most thoughtful, exclusive content out there. After watching the video about homes, you might make your way over to the Nebula original series Day Pass, where Jason from Not Just Bikes navigates public transit networks of the world's best cities. So follow the link on the screen or in the description to start off on that journey. It's an incredible bargain at $2.50 per month when you sign up for a year using my link. That's 50% off the regular price. If you really love it, you can pay once, and then you can get access to everything for the rest of your life. And if you're already signed up, firstly, thank you. We also offer gift cards for sharing with your friends and family. Every engagement goes directly to helping our channel bring you these deep dives into the built environment that we both love. See you over there.